Thank you, Thomas. Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, how many of you know what a qualified opinion is on audited financial statements? Well, we have two. Well, for the rest of you, it is an opinion that is expressed on financial statements, and it means that there is something wrong with the company. It's a very serious claim, and most companies that receive a qualified opinion invariably fail or close. Most companies, or all companies, want what's called an unqualified opinion, which means everything is okay. This story is about the threat of a qualified opinion on a credit union where I had just started working. In 1988, I was hired as the accounting manager for a credit union in Massachusetts. When I accepted the job, I didn't realize or know what the condition of the books were, but as soon as I started, I discovered they were a complete mess. Not to bore you with the details, but the person who I replaced had left about 9 months ago. I went to my boss, Joe, and asked him for some help, to which he replied, well, I really didn't get involved in the books. Why don't you give Jeff, your predecessor, a call and see if he can help? Well, I called Jeff, and he was not inclined to help. Apparently, they did not part ways on good terms. So I rolled up my sleeves and I tried to figure it out on my own. To make matters worse, the CEO was on a quality improvement quest, and I was put on the quality improvement team. Now, this team met every Wednesday promptly at 8 a.m., and the meeting lasted 3 or 4 hours. And the CEO was also a stickler for punctuality. And if you showed up for a meeting 1 minute late, he would kick you out. So then, while I was still trying to figure out the books, in walked the auditors from KPMG, the auditing firm, to do the annual audit. A few days after they arrived, the manager walked up to me and asked me for the suspense account reconciliations. They weren't done. I was still trying to figure them out. And I explained to him it was only $60,000 and not really material in a $150 million credit union. And I was able to convince him of that. I promised him that I would get the reconciliation done, but probably not before they completed the audit. So, the next day was a Wednesday, and I did not want to spend another 3 or 4 hours in a quality improvement meeting. So when I got there, I walked in at 8:01. And just as I anticipated, Dave kicked me out of the meeting. I went back to my desk and continued to work on the reconciliations. About 11 o'clock, I get a call from Helen, Dave's secretary. Dave wanted to see me in his office right now. As I walked over there, I thought, well, this may be the end for me. I sat down in front of him, and his face was turning a beet red. And he started off the conversation by saying, "You're fired." And then he paused 2 or 3 seconds, and then he finished, "From the quality improvement team." And then he went on to berate me about my disrespect for not getting to the meeting on time and my lack of commitment to the quality improvement process, and he was going to have to reevaluate my position in the credit union. I apologized profusely, said I meant no disrespect, that I had a lot of problems in accounting that I was trying to clean up, and I hoped someday he would let me back on the committee. I couldn't get that out before I saw steam coming out of his ears, and he yelled, "Get the hell out of my office!" I got up and moved rather briskly back to my desk. And I sat there thinking, this is probably the end for me for sure. Then in walked the partner from KPMG, and he called his manager and me over to his desk and pointed to the ledger and said, where's the suspense account reconciliations? And I said, I gave him the same spiel I gave about 60,000 versus 150 million in materiality. And he smiled and went, well, yeah, the balance is 60 grand, but tell me what the debits and credits are. And we both, the manager and I both looked at it, and we saw that the debits and credits each totaled over $20 million. And then we looked up, and he looked at us and said, that's material. and he growled at his manager, and then he said, I'm not signing off on this unqualified opinion. And he walked over to Joe's office, grabbed him, they went down to Dave's office, they were in there for about an hour, then they called me in. And they said they had worked out an agreement where we would write off the 60 grand and they would sign off on the unqualified opinion. Then Dave looked at me and said, I now realize this isn't your fault and you can leave my office right now. To which I got up and got out real quick because the heat was real hot at the time. I sat at my desk. About 5 minutes later, my boss, Joe, came out, and his face was white as a ghost. And he called me into his office and said that if this ever happened again, we will both be fired. In closing, if it hadn't been for that threat of a qualified opinion, Dave never would have found out how messed up the books were, and he would have probably transferred me to the Fresh Pond branch as a teller. I would end up working there for 14 years, and in 1994, Dave would actually award me the Outstanding Employee Award of the Year. Talk about coming full circle. Mr. Toast.